so-called Black History Month. Because in 1931 in America, he created something called Negro History Week, which went on to be Negro History Month, which 20 years ago became Black History Month. One of the reasons why Carter G. Woodson did that was because he realized that 60 years after the so-called African Americans, and we can put the people in the Caribbean in that equation, were so-called freed, when they could deliver parcels to the front doors of white people's houses, they were still going to the back door. And he questioned that. And he said one way we can counteract that is to make so-called Negroes know they have history. Because if you don't have a historical memory, you will be defined and redefined by people who don't have your best interest at heart. So let's go. This is what we're dealing with. These are some of the oldest images of chattel slaves, African slaves. I don't know if you've seen these images before. These are some of the oldest images. I want you to look at them carefully, because if you notice one thing they have in common, which is what? Anybody? Somebody just said it. Children. Now, if these are some of the oldest images, this means these are some of the last images. Yes? So when people are telling us about our history and giving us programs like Roots, we need to think about who is defining the reality and for what purpose. Read a little passage to you from a book. The idea of ownership, one man owned another. Imagine any man in any part of the world owning a man or woman from Barbados. They would forget all about it since it happened so long ago. Moreover, they weren't told anything about that. They'd read about the Battle of Hastings and William the Conqueror. That happened so many hundreds of years ago. And slavery was thousands of years before that. It was too far back for anyone to worry about teaching us history. That's really why it wasn't taught. It was too far back. History had to begin somewhere, but not so far back. And nobody knew where this slavery business took place. The teacher had simply said, not here, somewhere else, probably it never happened at all. The old woman, poor fool, she must have had a dream, a bad dream. They laughed quietly. Anybody know where that comes from? George Lamming, book called In the Castle of My Skin. He wrote about his experiences growing up as a child in Barbados. But what is the problem that we have with this picture? Imagine you have got black youth in Barbados discussing history and not even knowing how they ended up in Barbados. This is what happens when you don't have the power to define your own reality. Somebody shackles your mind. We're going to unshackle the mind. Everybody all right? Yeah. Want to sing kind of, can give you some exercise or warm-up thing. Don't kind of look tense, you know. I warm up. I've had my lunch, I'm not hungry anymore, I won't buy it. We're going to unshackle the mind. My brethren, my brother, my dearest departed brother, Steve Biko, he said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. You know what we say in Jamaica? Babylon released the chain and use them brain. Yeah? That's what they say. You see, sometimes we say things, you know, and they are very profound. And we don't even really understand how profound those things are until we start to think about them. Ask the question, what was the most important to the institution of African chattel enslavement? Economic factors or race? Very quickly, because we're going to, as I said, this is a rapid run. You have to get me back to me a 2-hour slot, no good reason. Who says economic factors? Show of hands, very quickly. Who says race? Yeah? Let's deal with the race thing first. Because one of the things about when I was teaching sociology, I had to teach racism. And one of the things we need to recognize as members of the human family, there is no such thing as race. Race is a distraction. It was created about 300 years ago by racist white Europeans for one specific purpose, and that was to control. Patrick Vieira in the paper said, I shame my race. Well, when I read that, I said, never shame me, come never spit that man. It wasn't me. Who in here felt shame for that? You didn't feel shame? I don't feel shame, but I said, well, I said it sometimes. What did he say to him? What did he say to him to provoke that reaction? Because one thing we know, you do that to somebody in our culture, that is like telling them about their mother, yes or no? That is the worst thing you can do to somebody, yes or no? So to me, I don't know what he said to him, but I know I never feel shame. Ask you a question. Have you ever known a white person to make such a statement in the media? Ever? Come out and say, I feel shame for my whole race. Have you ever heard of that? I don't hear it. And there are reasons why. If not, then why not? Let me show you. I have a new book out, it's upstairs, it's called Whiteness Made Simple. Because we're always being taught about blackness. Black youth this, black people this. But we don't know anything about whiteness. White people have been writing about whiteness, white academics, for 22 years. How many of you have ever heard that concept before? Whiteness. Because they write amongst themselves. But there was one woman called Peggy McIntosh, an American scholar, woman, feminist. She was actually writing to critique men. And then she realized how privileged she was just for being born white. In 1987, she put out an essay called The Invisible Knapsack of White Privilege. She said every day, over 56 things work in her favor just for being born white that she has never had to achieve and she's never had to earn. 56 things. Give you an example. I can turn on the television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. The reason why we self-publish, we do everything ourselves at UBeyond, because when I went to academic publishers to publish the book version of my doctoral thesis, one of them said to me, Dr. Henry, your book is too rigorously academic. But, do you understand the confusion? Now I showed it to my white supervisor who, after he picked himself up off the floor, said, I've never seen anything like that before. How can you all be too rigorously academic? That's how you get a PhD. So you see, sometimes, no, you see, we have to really think about the profundity, because we should be our young people to get PhDs in everything to make change. But don't listen to what they tell you about yourself, because it's different. When they said that, I said, thank you very much. My mother always said, you know, when people disrespect you, and you know what they're saying, you really know the truth of what they're saying, all you just say, thank you very much. Don't get in an argument with them. Because there's an old African saying, you know, if you argue with a fool, passers-by will not know the difference. Yeah, that's what they say. I'm concerned if people tell you that. They tell you in different ways. Don't even give them Godspeed. Leave them in their ignorance. Because they have their reasons and we should have ours. Whether I use checks, credit cards or cash, I can count on my skin color not to work against the appearance of financial reliability. A few years ago I went to pay for exhaust on my car. Took out my credit card. Well, actually it's a debit card. I'm gonna like the credit business. Do you know the little guy, little white boy, innocent boy, probably 17, 18, he looked at my card and was like, you're a doctor? Ooh, you're a doctor? Oh, you're a doctor? I went, you wouldn't understand, man. Put the finger on the finger. We shouldn't be distracted. You know, I know people who would think it would be right to disrespect him. Why should I? I know what his problem is, but he doesn't. That's why we're over there.